So quantum computers, what's known, they have certain algorithms that allow to break these cryptographic methods, right? And people are worried, right? To your point, would this chain be affected? Would this mechanism be affected?
This episode is brought to you by Uphold, which is a great crypto platform that I've been using since 2018. Uphold makes it easy to buy, sell, trade cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and altcoins. In fact, they have 300 plus cryptocurrencies on their platform, and they carry precious metals such as gold and silver, and you can swap between these assets. So it's really unique. Uphold is safe and reliable. I've never had any issues with them, and they are 100% reserved. You can review their transparency report. They don't commingle or lend out your funds. Now, Uphold recently launched a great product called Uphold Rewards, and it's packed with many benefits. You can earn up to 5.25% on stable coins, get 24-hour early access to new token listings, and unlock exclusive crypto insights. And they support a variety of stablecoins, such as PYUSD, that's PayPal stablecoin, Circle's USDC, and USBC. They will be supporting Ripple's upcoming launch of RLUSD. So this is a really great rewards program. And if you'd like to learn more, please visit the link in the description. Welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. I'm your host, Tony Edward, and my guest today is Sergey Gorbunov, who is the co-founder of Axelar Protocol and the CEO of Interop Labs. Sergey is also an associate professor at the University of Waterloo. Sergey, great to have you on.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sergey, you have an extensive background with crypto and blockchains. You were on the founding team of Algorand, and I have a lot of questions for you. I want to get your perspective on many of the things happening in the crypto market. But before we get there, tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, and what's your professional background.
Yeah, my professional background is distributed systems and cryptography. I did PhD at MIT. Afterwards, spent a little bit of time at University of Waterloo, kind of doing a lot of research in cryptography, blockchain, distributed systems. Worked on the Algorand project, as you mentioned, kind of helped to design that and take that to the market. And then afterwards, been focusing on the kind of interoperability problem in the blockchain space.
And what was your first encounter with crypto or blockchain, and what was your aha moment?
Yeah, my first encounters were at the end of grad school. So I was doing work in kind of more advanced cryptography. I had my eye set on sort of graduation and had everything lined up for the thesis, and I was pretty much done with it. So I was looking around for new challenges, new problems to solve. There was a small Bitcoin club that Ron Rivest, one of the founders of RSA protocol, ran at MIT. So I joined that, reading some white papers, and the topic became very, very interesting. Of course, kind of quickly realized some of the technical, limitations of Bitcoin and Ethereum like protocols, and so we started to think about how do we do better, right? And how do we design something that could scale further along? And that's where, some of the early ideas behind the Algorand protocol with, Sylvia Micali were originated. And kind of took it from there.
And how long were you at Algorand? Obviously, that's one of the bigger projects in the crypto industry. And Silvio, I've heard him speak over the years, and Algorand certainly is doing things differently. How did you end up working there, and what were some of your contributions?
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of work there. So, originally, it was a sort of a research type of a project, right? We wrote very first white paper with Silvio. It wasn't kind of a called Algorand at the time. It was, I believe, 2014 or 2015. For a few years after that, the blockchain crypto space was still, not as developed, right? And people were still thinking what to do. I remember actually some first emails from Vitalik at the time when they read our manuscript were, oh, it's great to see you guys thinking about some of the similar ideas that was thinking, at the Ethereum, right? Where they already realized that Ethereum would have to migrate to proof of stake from proof of work. And so, he sent us some kind of nice notes on like highlighting similarities in the thought process and what needs to evolve for those proof of stake systems to become reality, right? The concept of proof of stake didn't exist back then, right? It was it was all being originated. But so I think after I finished school, I think Silva tried to get kind of funding for the Algorand project. It took a little bit of time until the markets kind of picked up until like 2017 is when I believe kind of the ICO boom came again, right? You had good funding that was available. So we got some funding for the Algorand protocol, and like a few of us, from MIT and Silvio kind of came together in Boston and started to, continue the design, right? Continue to figure out what it actually looks like as a product, right? The blockchain stack, what smart contracts look around it. Yeah, and then I think beyond like the Algorand itself, we've done some nice contributions to the broader ecosystem. So, as an example, I led standardization of kind of a BLS signatures with a team that was at Algorand and a few other places. Like Dan Bonet in Stanford and some of his students at the time. So, and BLS signatures, if is what ends up being used in Ethereum at the at a proof of stake consensus and many other blockchain networks today. So I think it was a very good project to try to align everybody to the new, foundations of cryptography that it needed for those systems to be efficient, right? And so and kind of a bunch of other work along the way.
Now, obviously, you spent time at MIT and you were in those circles. But were you by any chance there when current SEC Chair Gary Gensler, who's going to be former SEC Chair Gary Gensler soon, was there, I think, teaching at some point? And I remember him making statements about Algorand over the years that you could put Uber on Algorand. Were you around at the same time?
Yeah, I was around at the same time. I believe I actually gave a couple of guest lectures at the Business School of Management at MIT at the time. So it had a good group, right? Christian Catalini was there. He ended up working at Facebook Libra, and now they have a new project around Bitcoin L2s. There's quite a lot of talent at the time.
Now, talk to us about Axelar and what was the goal behind starting this and what's the mission?
Yeah, I mean, the goal was really try to figure out how do you help innovation at the blockchain layer to continue while preserving kind of composability across different blockchain layers, right? So, to be more concrete, when we launched Algorand, it was very new stack, right? New consensus, new way to approach smart contracts, transactions, kind of security. As soon as we launched it, problem number one was how do we connect it to everything else so we can bootstrap both developer activity and liquidity, right? Bring new assets to the ecosystem, allow developers to easier migrate their users or interact with applications that are built on Algorand. Ideally, from our view, we would have loved to see a protocol that we could just plug and play into the Algorand, right? To be connected to like Ethereum, Bitcoin, Ripple, and like XRP Ledger and like other chains. But we couldn't find anything, right? There's nothing really available, and so we thought that look, the blockchain ecosystem is still young. Right? We're gonna continue to see many other layer ones being developed and innovated on. Right. In parallel, like Solana was being built, Avalanche was being built, Near was being built, Polkadot was being built. We didn't even talk about layer twos that all came later at the time. And so we thought, look, like all of those innovations are going to continue to happen. People will keep on figuring out how do you optimize consensus, how do you optimize smart contract language, how do you maybe have your own unique kind of go-to-market or use case that you want to target and have your own, chain or application around it. And they will need connectivity. Otherwise, we just continue to build siloed ecosystems, right, that don't talk to one another. And Yeah, we thought this is going to be a very major problem for the ecosystem to solve. And, first year we had to do a lot of education. In the first few years, we had to do a lot of education in the market around it. But, now it's a very well established, of course, problem, very well established domain. And I think we still keep on seeing interoperability almost like one step behind innovation that happens at the layer ones, right? I think there's still so much work that needs to happen at the interoperability layer to keep unifying the ecosystem, enable like simple developer, simple user experiences, and very exciting times ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was looking at the Axelar network website and I noticed the different of categories of folks that are working with you guys enterprise wise. You have Microsoft, Deutsche Bank, MasterCard, wallets, Ledger, MetaMask, and so forth, RWA, Circle, Ondo. So you're trying to help enterprises, wallet services, and different factions of the digital asset space be able to connect with each other, obviously have interoperability. And would the interoperability be the movement of certain tokenized assets or NFTs, stablecoins? Is it that, or is there other use cases as well?
Yeah, kind of the use cases span depending on the application, but it's essentially unification of developer and user experiences, right? So you brought up, token. So as an example, as a token holder, if I have a stable coin like USDC, I want to, and if I have it on multiple chains, I don't want to have to think about it, right? I want to see it as one token. Sure, maybe it has a place on, different chains instantiated depending on what applications I use on those chains, but I don't want to have to think about it. So from a wallet perspective, as a user, I want to see it all abstracted. I have my tokens, I have applications, and no matter where the applications are, I should be able to go and use them, right? And then interoperability under the hood is responsible for, yeah, token transfer if there needs to be, information transfer if there needs to be, right? So as an example, you want to deposit your token from one chain into an application on another chain, but you don't want to have to just like move the token, then switch a wallet, then deposit to the application and have like 20 clicks in the process, right? You want to have seamless as one transaction, one click from the wallet. And so, general message passing types of primitives that the interoperability allow you to do that, kind of streamline the process of you interacting from the wallet to multiple applications across different chains in very unified experience as you were interacting on a single chain.
Hmm. Now, I want to make sure I break this down for those who are new to blockchains and crypto. So, does Axelar have its own blockchain? Or does it serve as a layer two or layer three? And if Axelar, for whatever reason, I'm not saying it will, goes down, does that break any of the bridges?
Yeah, so great question. So first of all, Axel itself, you can think of it as it is a blockchain that connects other blockchains, right? So you can think of it as like, the mega highway of highways, right? So it's a transportation network, but it's designed is to route messages, route tokens from one chain to another in an efficient way. It is powered by blockchain technology, so everything that the protocol is fully decentralized, open, permissionless, so you can see, you can audit it, you can contribute to it and build connections and keep on extending this highway, right? And then, to your point, what happens if Axelar, goes down? So first of all, I think decentralization in the blockchain systems is what we have seen to be the most robust way to make sure the systems don't go down, right? And Axel is the only interoperability protocol that has, like I said, fully proof of stake based, open consensus, open decentralized network. So we've never actually had the protocol or the network itself kind of go down, and it has 100% uptime. Maybe individual like transactions sometimes don't go through because there are gas issues, but the network itself has a full 100% uptime, and that's thanks to the just decentralization of the network itself, right? And yeah, if something happens, you don't have enough nodes, because again the protocol is open. You can go and run your own nodes and continue operating the network, right? Inclusion in the network and participation is just as open as like on Bitcoin and Ethereum, where anybody can help network make progress. And so same properties, very strong liveness properties, are then inherited by the Axel network.
Mm. And then I'm assuming the vision is as we get the next billion people to come into crypto, and making it as easy as possible for them to onboard. And you mentioned the interoperability. So if whether they're using JP Morgan or Deutsche Bank or MasterCard, you're running behind the scenes and they don't necessarily even need to know about Axelar network or what's happening behind, just that it works, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think, to your point. So first of all, a lot of these enterprises that you mentioned, they're all looking to launch assets either on, their own chains and then connect them to everything else outside, right?
Mm.
Or they go and they partner with existing chains like XRP Ledger, like Stellar, right? Like Sui. They'll launch the assets there and they still want to interoperate with either other bank chains, right? Or enterprise chains or other public chains. So they all need interoperability. But to your point, for the end user, once you're beyond, technical analysis and developer analysis, the developers need to validate security and robustness of all these building blocks that they're using. End user just wants to be able to use these new efficient rail systems, right? Be able to be the beneficiary of it, have global settlement, cheap transactions, global reach to be able to transact with anybody across the world. They don't necessarily care so much where the assets are, how they interact with one another, how you move from one chain to another. So those things are abstracted away. And I think, the analogies that you can make are similar to the internet, right? Right now we're having this, Zoom call, the information travels across probably over a dozen different networks to allow us to do this podcast live in a very seamless way, right? And
Mhm.
so it's the magnitude of all of these networks and interconnection between all of them that enables these experiences. And I think when it comes to blockchain and financial assets, it's inevitable that we're going to be in a very, very multi-chain world and that scale is needed to support all the new primitives and assets that are entering the space. But for average user, the experience needs to be a lot simpler. It's again all the way from your wallet or application to the apps and the underlying infrastructure rails, need to be hidden.
Yeah, absolutely. Does Axelar have a token, and what's the protocol that it's based on? You mentioned proof of stake earlier. What does it use? What type of mechanism?
Yeah, so Axelar has a utility governance token, right? It powers staking on the AXL network. It powers governance on the AXL network. Yeah, the actual protocol has been designed originally from the Cosmos and Tendermint consensus. And then we had to like customize it and modify everything from the incentives, how validators propagate information to facilitate this interoperability use case. And so it's been, quite a lot of work to design the stack to make sure it is robust in the way that is. But, kind of a Cosmos framework is actually pretty flexible that allowed us to do a lot of those changes.
Mm. I mean, you guys have some amazing partnerships. I'm just once again looking at the website, and maybe you can tell us a bit about, your roadmap for 2025, and can we expect to see more enterprises of the caliber of JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, and so forth coming on board?
Yeah, so we recently launched a very new framework. It's called the Amplifier framework that effectively changes, I would say, interoperability landscape and takes it to the new level. And what that means is that interoperability now with it becomes completely permissionless, right? So
Mm.
meaning that you don't necessarily have to, talk to us as the builder or anybody else to get connectivity of your chain to all the other chains. Right?
Mm.
It's fully permissionless framework. It's fully permissionless model. And so we have an array of very big partners that are building around this framework to connect their stacks, right? Everything from enterprises to, some of the big public chains like XRP Ledger, right? Solana, Sui. There's a connection to Bitcoin being made. There's a connection to Stacks ecosystem being made. So I'm super excited for all of those connections to go live,
Mm.
through this amplifier framework. And I think it would essentially interconnect everything that matters. in the crypto space. And yeah, to your point, there's quite a lot of ongoing work with enterprises initiatives. A lot of them around tokenization verticals, right? So we essentially want to make sure that tokenization becomes as chain agnostic as possible, right? And towards that end, we have just recently, a couple of months ago, launched a product called Interchain Token Service that allows you to, launch your token on many chains at the click at the one transaction.
Mm.
And so I think that's going to be the default mode of operation where people go and launch their token on all the chains without having to, launch it on one and then bring it back and forth, which is a very, very old process of doing things.
Oh, for sure. I love it. This is certainly the infrastructure for the future of blockchain and a multi-chain world. Now, question for you. Let's say for whatever reason, a blockchain goes away. We know not every chain will stick around for the next 10 to 15, 20 years. Let's say one goes away. What are the mechanisms in place to then have those maybe tokenize assets then be either burned or pulled out from that system and moved to other blockchains?
So that's a great question. So you could actually use products like the Interchain Token Service that I mentioned to do that, right? So it allows you to, map either an existing token that you have and replicate or clone it to all the other chains, right? Or you can mirror it across multiple chains, or you can simply relaunch it with the same state. So yeah, once you have this interconnectivity, kind of a fabric, to your point, this sort of token migration, right, or token cloning becomes a function on top of this infrastructure, which projects like Interchain Token Service support.
Okay, God. So that mechanism's in place. Yeah, that's just a question I thought of because, I know not every, like I said, every blockchain is going to exist. There's probably going to be a handful of winners. Right now there's so many, and it's a
Yeah,
heated
I mean,
race.
I think there's like two lines of thought, right? Like, which is a, you consolidate to a few, big chains, and like that's more than sufficient. Uh, and then there's everything is like an app chain, right? Kind of L2 type of stuff. And I think the reality is that we're going to be probably in a hybrid, right? Where we're going to have big monolithic efficient stacks that have the best kind of composability and the best liquidity that you can go and launch, and leverage. Very efficient, new iterations of chains like Sui, like Stellar, like XRPL support thousands of transactions, per second and things like that. Um, but there is a world where we're seeing more and more applications that do have a product market fit launching their own chains so they can customize the entire stack, right? So
Mm.
we've seen this from DYDX. We're now seeing it from Uniswap. We've been seeing it from, before that, kind of a couple of years ago, Compound, right? So yeah, I think applications that do have a product market fit that do want to customize more of the rewards mechanisms, security mechanisms, maybe liquidity mechanisms of the underlying validation layer will go and launch app chains that will still be interconnected to these bigger chains and bigger more monolithic designs. So I'm pretty confident that we're going to be in a hybrid world between those, and I think that we're already seeing that trend where applications that have found the product market fit then migrate from these monolithic chains into their own like app chains and then customize more logic around those.
Mm. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Um, So, Sergey, I want to get your perspective and thoughts on quantum computing. This has been a big topic lately and its impact on Bitcoin and other blockchains. Given your expertise in cryptography, kind of give us the lay of the land. Do you feel there's going to be a threat here to many blockchains from quantum computing?
Yeah, so I think quantum is still very early, right? I think if you look at some of the news from the last few months from Google of the world and some other folks, like they're definitely promising, they're definitely in the right direction, but they're by no means kind of close to being able to break cryptography, right? That's used in the blockchain. So for those that are not aware, one of the reasons people talk so much about quantum is that all the blockchain systems rely on cryptography, right? Cryptography is what's used to generate your accounts on the blockchain, used to sign transactions so that nobody else um, can maliciously sign on your behalf, right, or fake transactions. So cryptography is fundamental. It's used by the validation of all the activity that happens. So quantum computers, what's known, they have certain algorithms that allow to break these cryptographic methods, right? And people are worried, right? To your point, would this chain be affected? Would this mechanism be affected? The reality is, like I said, we're still quite far from those attacks being practical. At the same time, there by cryptographers and researchers have been ongoing efforts to design cryptography that's resilient to quantum algorithms. Right. Actually, a lot of cryptography that I worked on in my graduate school is resilient against quantum cryptography. There is now a NIST, which is a National Institute of Standardization Technology, effort to standardize primitives that are used, that will be used in these post-quantum, signature and encryption algorithms. So those efforts are well underway. I think we know quite well what we're doing and what those algorithms are. And I would see essentially a migration over the next 10 years by the blockchain. And not only blockchain systems, like all the financial systems would be affected when the quantum computers come to reality. So I do think those threats, need to be, everybody needs to be mindful of them. There's no reason to panic or do anything, overnight, but you should think about, how would my system, blockchain or traditional financial system migrate to those algorithms, and what the effects of them would be on my overall security, and have a plan in place to, over the next, I would say, decade, migrate. I don't know where it's going to be, a little bit less or more on the time frame, but it's a multi-year project, and we definitely may at least I would say 10 years. This is a guess, right? I think it will be a guess on everyone's part, but there's quite a lot of stuff that has to happen for those to actually affect blockchain systems that we use today.
Oh, for sure. And I'm assuming the logical step for many of these folks with nodes or whether it's mining equipment, that they would upgrade with the same technology, right? Maybe there's a bit of a lag, but if you have this
Right.
respective chip from NVIDIA or whoever, I'm going to build mining equipment around that, or I'm going to build computers that can run proper nodes with that chip, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. And to your point, I think um, the security threats of these quantum computers really come in like twofolds. You have to analyze the consensus itself, and ask yourself, am I vulnerable, or does anything have to change with it? So, as an example, Bitcoin uses, of course, proof of work consensus, but it's mostly using hash functions. And
Right.
these hash functions are not vulnerable to quantum attacks to the same extent as signature schemes. Okay, so you will need to adjust parameters of Bitcoin to make sure it keeps on mining efficiently, and nobody can kind of create forks at a fraction of a cost. But that's a parameter change at the consensus algorithm. Nothing changes to the Bitcoin consensus algorithm itself. And then there are signatures used by the Bitcoin community, right, to sign transaction that actually sends the funds from you to me, right? And those things will be vulnerable to those quantum attacks. And then the Bitcoin community and the communities will have to migrate to a new type of, cryptography used to make sure that those individual transactions are then not affected to the same extent, right?
Mm.
Now, for other blockchains, you might be vulnerable at the consensus and individual transaction layer. And so then, yes, you would have to migrate to the right algorithms, along the way. But some of them already protected, right, at the consensus, like Bitcoin, and they will only need to address individual transactions.
Mm, okay, that definitely makes sense. Appreciate that perspective because, to your point, there's just a lot of headlines. Oh no, quantum computing is going to take down Bitcoin and this blockchain, but we're not close to that yet, and folks will evolve and iterate and make
Yeah.
updates. Yeah.
And like the last point that I'll make on that, I actually think blockchains are suited right now to embrace the upgrades as transparently as possible compared to, sorry, legacy traditional systems, right? Uh, Most blockchains today have upgrade mechanisms, right? We have seen upgrades in Bitcoin, we have seen upgrades in Ethereum, and many chains have those kind of on-chain governance-based, consensus-driven upgrades where the whole ecosystem switches to a new mode of operation. Traditional financial systems don't have those, right? It's a lot of bespoke systems and pieces of information and APIs that are sort of stitched and glued together, communicating in a very bespoke way. It would be much harder to upgrade those than it would be to upgrade any blockchain system, in my view.
Yeah, because many of those systems are so antiquated. In
Yeah,
TradFi, yeah, it's just the old systems, and we're trying to get them to move to blockchains and right now. So it's a great point.
maybe that would be a way to push them into blockchain system. Like that's your way
Exactly.
to be quantum secure.
Right. Um, I did want to get your thoughts on AI and crypto. We're seeing kind of a symbiotic relationship where AI is being used to enhance blockchain attributes, and then blockchain is being used to police AI from a deepfake perspective. How do you see this relationship and this intersection growing as we head into the future?
Yeah, I think the way that I like to summarize is that um, AI makes the cost of generation to be almost zero,
Mm,
but it requires verification to be useful, right? So anything that's AI generated today, people are asking questions like, how do you differentiate it from real, right?
mm,
How do you differentiate what's AI generated, what's not AI generated? How do you differentiate what's generated by malicious AI versus not malicious AI, right?
mm.
And so blockchain systems are very good at giving the ground truth, right, of information. And I think that relationship today is very, um, it's very early. I think there's a lot of buzz and there's a lot of hype. It needs to be developed more. I think it needs to be explored more. But I do think there are real intersections, there are real use cases because of these very two conflicting properties. Right? One is let me generate things as fast as possible, as much
Yeah.
as possible, um, and that information, um, you know, ends up being very hard to validate, to verify, to communicate, to authenticate. And then we have blockchains that are very good at, validating, distributing, rewarding, verifying all of that. And I think for the AI to go to the level that it needs to be at, it will need to be combined with a sort of verification layer in some sense. And I think blockchain is very good at doing that in addition to having, of course, financial rails embedded in the AI systems, which I think are necessary as well.
Yeah. And do you think this is something I've been noodling on that social platforms where many of us get our information from, right? We see what our friends, family are doing. That when we upload an image or a video, there's going to have to be some sort of blockchain encryption tag to it so that if someone comes with a different version that's AI manipulated, we can say, no, that was not from Sergey or not from Tony.
I think we need to get there, right?
Mm.
Otherwise, again, like we live in a world of made up facts and made up information, right? Like I really hope we can get to the world where information is validated, can be authenticated with full provenance. If it's been modified along the way, we know what the modifications are, and you can go down the routes because yeah, again, I think the cost of information is going to be negligible unless it's verifiable information going forward.
Mm. And do you foresee that in the future we may have I don't know if this makes sense. AI to police the world of AI, right? You have these AI agents from the government or law enforcement or from companies that are just monitoring what's happening overall, what people are doing, and what rogue AI agents may be doing. Do you see something like that?
No, definitely. I mean, like, I view AI as like no other, as no different as like other software system, right? Like, yes, we have software today that, does certain things used by, good actors, bad actors, educational institutions, medical institutions. And of course, we have a lot of software that, polices today's software, right? Monitoring for vulnerabilities, for attacks, and everything else. So if you're in the AI world, and if that's a better way to build software and systems and propagate information, of course you're going to need the AI itself to police one another, right? And the software systems will need to leverage it to kind of keep up, right, with threats, with attacks, with information explosion that happens in other AI systems. So yeah, I mean, I view it as the better, more efficient way to both build systems, to search systems, to analyze information across the world. And, I think blockchain it plays a critical role by providing some of the properties needed, around authenticity of the data.
Mm. This is a very far out question, but I'm just thinking about what the future may look like. What if we have an AI that creates its own blockchain, its own token, and no human can control it? Do you think that that might be possible in like 40 years or something?
I don't see why you need to wait, 40 years. I'm sure you do it in 40 days, frankly.
True, right?
um,
With AGI,
so
yeah.
yeah, I mean, like, you've seen projects of AI kind of a launching tokens, right? Generating its own keys these days and like applications. There's no reason why it cannot launch, a blockchain system, decide how the validation logic is happen, under the hood. So, yeah, I mean, like, I think 40 days, not 40 years.
Yeah, and maybe that's like, what we saw in the movies with Skynet, right? And it's doing its own thing. You can't control it anymore, but hopefully there's no
I don't know about
dystopian.
not being able to control like that.
Okay.
That's sort of too far out there. I think all
Okay.
systems can be controlled.
Uh,
Like AI systems are systems that you can isolate them. You can restrict their scope of runtime and things like that. So yeah, I'm not afraid of uncontrollable Skynet takeover of things. I'm more afraid of just abundance of these systems, and a result of abundance of these systems, lots of errors coming up, lots of misinformation, lots of bad just bad decisions being made potentially by other systems, right? And if you want to call that the Skynet type of drama, maybe it will lead to that. But I think we're pretty far from that. Um, but there are real, I think, challenges that we're going to have to address, right? With just the abundance of information this AI systems and with the abundance of actions these AI systems can take.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a brave new world, exciting, but also, like you said, some things we got to be cautious about. I did want to get your thoughts on the maturity of the crypto market. Obviously, you've been in this space for a while. What are your thoughts on how the industry has grown, the change of the environment for crypto starting this year with the new president, new Congress, and TradFi is here looking to build tokenizing and much more?
I definitely think it's becoming more and more mature, right, and more ready for a kind of a mass adoption, right, and like real distribution. So, as an example, when we're even working at Algorand, we had a lot of conversations with some of the same institutions as we're talking to today, right? And in many cases, a lot of the conversations were around doing pilots in the R&D departments in some sense, right? And that's where the conversations remained, and that's where the conversations were left. Today, we're finding ourselves in conversations with product teams, right, at these institutions. So product teams that are looking at tokenization, product teams that understand that blockchain systems can provide more efficient settlement of their transactions, more efficient accounting of their transactions, right? Fewer operating costs. And those product teams are figuring out what the products are. How do you launch behind them, right? So I think we're definitely in a new era for adoption amongst institutions and enterprises. I think the technology is there. Technology is now ready. We know how to build good experiences. We know how to build chain abstracted interfaces and tokens. We know how to scale underlying consensus as well. So I think a lot of the infrastructure problems that we've been working on over the last decade, I think are solved. We need to enter the world of usability, clear value proposition for around the use cases. And I think these conversations are very, very exciting, very, very real. And I'm kind of looking forward to what's going to happen over the next few years with, new administration on board, as well as the technology being at the phase that it's at.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things I've been thinking about, and this is a conversation other people have been having as well, is getting the wallet right so that my mom
Yeah,
and dad, the average Joe and Jane walking down the street they have the Web 2 feel to it, right? The interface, but it's powered by blockchains. It's powered by Web
yeah,
3. And while they may know, okay, this is a crypto blockchain related app, it doesn't feel like it doesn't, I don't have to worry about a 24 phrase
for sure.
password and all that. Are there any wallets that call out to you or that you think might be leading the charge here?
So there are actually kind of quite a few wallets that are embracing kind of a traditional sign-on mechanism to generate cryptographic keys. So as an example, we're working with Sui blockchain quite a lot, and they have this project called ZK Login, which I really love. The basic idea is to be able to generate all the cryptographic materials that you need using your standard credentials from more traditional like online platforms that you use, right? So you can like go to Google, authenticate to your email from Google, and that will serve as a credential to generate, a cryptographic key on a blockchain, right? You'll never have to think about this cryptographic key. You'll never have to think about recovery beyond recovering your, Google credential. But it is going to be sufficient to establish your identity in the blockchain system and then use that for all the transactions. So I'm a big fan of these new projects that leverage, ZK type of technology to establish traditional credentials that a lot of people are familiar with, and then take those, port them into the blockchain, establish an identity for the user, and use that identity throughout the blockchain.
Yeah, and I love that idea as well, where it just makes it simple. There's not necessarily anything new to the end user per se, but on the back end, the cryptography, all the respective items are there. Do you think it also needs the buy-in from the Googles and the Facebooks that they may need to upgrade their infrastructure with using blockchain to help make sure this is all sealed tight?
I mean, the beauty of actually these cryptographic methods is no, they do not need any buy-in from Google, right? They do not need any buy-in from traditional vendor. You apply kind of cryptography on top of these authentication methods, and they won't have to change at all.
That's good to know. Okay. Sergey, great information, man. Very insightful. I got some wrap-up questions here for you. First, if you could create your own metaverse, what would the theme be?
What would the theme be? That's a good question. Clarity of thought.
Rapid fire questions. Favorite food?
Fish.
Favorite musician or band?
Metallica.
Favorite movie?
Matrix.
Favorite book?
Thinking Fast and Slow.
And when you're not working at Axelar, what are you doing for fun?
I try to exercise as much as I can, spending time with family. But exercise is one of my ways to, relax myself and the brain.
Sergey, absolute pleasure chatting with you. Appreciate your knowledge and your experience. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. This was awesome.